You got it now.
Yep, it's going.
Hi again, everybody. This is the Pacific Northwest Audio Society June 6th meeting, virtual meeting in Zoom. So until everything stabilizes, I think we're going to continue having these meetings. And this is one of the few that we hosted recently. We had a similar meeting for DIY Club as well. So it works out okay. If you're good with this, we can repeat these. And also gives us flexibility in terms of the schedule. So we are not necessarily tied to the first Saturday of the month. We can have more frequent meetings, or as people want to meet more frequently, that's fine, different times and all that. We can have like an evening meeting during the weekdays or weekends. So we are open to different opinions and ideas, how to make best use of our time and membership together. Again, thanks for your support for the club. So with that, I'm not going to take too much time of you with my ramblings here. So open to discussion from everybody. So how have you been doing, and any kind of things you want to share with the membership, just feel free. And we record this also, and I think then I post it on YouTube so others can see and participate. One thing I'd like to highlight here, you probably noticed it, we have a new website. Some of you already know about it, but it's a new website. And then it allows us to do additional things that we didn't do in the past. So for example, I sent the notice for this meeting through the website here. So if you know other people who are not receiving these invites, let me know, because we have a membership list managed within the website administration. So I think we put everybody in there, both paid and non-paid members. So everybody is in there. But if you notice anybody that's not coming here, check with them and then let me know. We also have a couple capabilities on the website. One is there's a member-only website access for some pages. So it requires account creation on your behalf. Once you create an account, then you can access the membership-only pages. So together we can decide what we're going to do on the membership-only pages. One thing I was thinking, some people have been asking about, like ads for their gear that they want to sell or trade with other members. That might be something we can exclusively enable in there. So you can.
Oh. What happened? Bummer. Not functioning.
And then we can factor into our website design going forward. Given the situation and the limited attendance to the Zoom meetings here, and also we don't meet in person for a while now. As you all know, we didn't have the official elections, so I continue as the president temporarily for now until we have a chance to meet again and take care of the voting and all that. And Rene is continuing as the VP, and Tim continues as the treasurer for the time being, given the circumstances. So, okay, with that, open to suggestions and any other comments you guys might have. So, what's been happening?
Well, I'll just comment on one thing. I had to return my PS Audio power plant back to PS Audio. It was something rubbing in the fan and some other little thing. It was under warranty, so I shipped that back. And I figured I need something to plug my equipment into that doesn't sound awful. And I got a hold of a used Shunyata, power conditioner, really cheap. And I plan to put it in another headphone system I have when I'm done with it. Anyway, so I plugged it in, plugged everything in, and it's a really good conditioner. They have a great reputation, but I've never fooled around with it. But the thing is that surprised me, I have never had any piece of equipment that changes its sound as much as this one using different power cords. Really amazing change. So I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced that with a power conditioner. before. I hadn't with other power conditioners. But the other moral of the story, though, is this Shinata thing. I picked up what was once a $2,000 unit for $500. And if you have a chance to get one of those, they're very good.
What's the model number?
Power conditioner. I'm
It was
sorry, go ahead.
It's called, they had a whole series of ones called the Hydra. But so they had a bunch of them that were called, mine was the Hydra 6. And that meant it had 6 outlets. They had a Hydra 8, Hydra 2, Hydra 4, or whatever. And then they had different generations of that. And then they went to a Hydra Alpha, which is the one I got. And, but you know, if you go to look at new Shinata stuff, it's not inexpensive stuff. So, but the opportunity to even pick up their older gear inexpensively, it's very good. It really is.
When you say a power conditioner, are you talking about conditioning the 110 volts or something else?
No, it's got outlets in the back, and it has some complex filters they developed to help filter things. But one of their main goals is to not constrict current. In fact, it's a 20 amp power cord connection. No, I just got
Okay, so it's conditioning the PSE input power.
right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Hey,
when
Bill,
you,
what power cords did you use and what was your favorite?
Well, I started out with what I had around, and I had, in fact, the one I was using with my PS Audio is one from a company called Silnote, which I like their interconnection, I like their cords, and they're very reasonably priced. And I liked the sound of it, except all of a sudden the bass kind of went away. So I said, well, that bothers me. So then I had a couple of generations of PS Audio power cords around. And the most recent one I had was called an AC3. And that sounded okay. It was a little bit hazy sounding, but had plenty of bass. And then I adjusted my subwoofer, and that kind of balanced things out. And I had read that the sweet spot in that line of conditioners was the AC5. And it was a little bit smaller gauge, but more importantly, I think it was a purer copper formulation. And I found one used online, and I picked it up, and I just put it in my system the other day. And it is a whole much better cord than the AC3. So that's what I'm using now. And then I'll continue the experiment when I get my PS Audio power plant back. It doesn't seem to make as big an impact on that because the power plant, of course, is manufacturing its own power. You know, it's an amplifier that gives a perfect sound wave and filters out distortions and all that kind of jazz. So this was just a little exercise for, a couple of weeks here. And, but I found it kind of interesting. And I also had a Shinata cord, an older, what was it called, a Diamondback. But I knew, I didn't even bother to put that one in because I knew when I used it before for other things, it was the same as most likely going to be the same as that other cord I put in, the Silnote, in that it's really nice in the mid-range, a little bit on the bright side, not enough in the lower end. So I didn't even test that one. So that's the end of my experiment so far. Has anybody experienced that with power conditioners, though, the sensitivity of power cords, or is it maybe just a Shinata thing?
I have a Cardis power cord that costs more than my DAC, and it makes my DAC sound a lot better than it does without that power cord. So,
Well, I like Cardis stuff. I have some Cardis interconnects.
yeah, me too.
talking about power, one thing I noticed here, you mentioned 110 volts. It's actually, our line voltage is a lot more than that. I'm not sure if you guys noticed it or not, but yesterday I was just measuring my line voltage here, AC line coming to the house. It's 123 volts. So it actually might impact how your equipment works if it doesn't have a power regulation. especially with the tube gear, it's going to change all your bias settings and potentially all your B plus and different kind of settings on your tube amplifier, and also the heat filament supply output. Because heat filament supplies, if they're using AC, straight AC, it fluctuates with the AC line coming in. With 123, it's pretty high voltage compared to 110 that which might be designed for. So something to check into.
Well, that's interesting. Well, see,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing I avoid with the power plant. It puts out exactly 120 volts. And they even have a little adjustment on it if you need to adjust it up or down a little bit for your condition.
Yeah, over the years, they've kind of crept up. It started out 110, then went to 115, and 117, and now it's a 120.
Well, I can tell you one thing, when I have the power plant hooked in, it's got a little meter that tells you percentage of distortion coming in and the percentage of distortion coming out. And what comes out is about 1/10 of what comes in my situation.
Have you noticed, based on time of day, does the distortion change, like at 6 o'clock at night versus first thing in the morning or something like that?
I don't monitor it that carefully, but it seems to stay in a fairly consistent range at my house. I was over at Philip Chance's house a couple of years ago, and he had an earlier generation power plant, and I could not believe how bad the power was on his lines. It was really noisy, like 10 times noisier than my house coming into the house.
Hey,
So when you say noisy, are you looking at it with an oscilloscope or something to see?
No, I'm not a techie. The new power plant that I've got actually comes with built-in meter functions on a touch screen kind of thing. And so you can toggle through a bunch of meters that read different things. And the old one just did it without a visual. It was just numbers that they gave. But it really gives you a sense of what's coming in and what's coming out. To me, I'll be honest with you, it's a huge difference in the sound of my system. It really is. I mean, because when I took the power plant out to ship it off, I just plugged it in temporarily to a plug strip, and it sounded way different.
Which power amp do you have?
You talk about the power plant? Or you talking about my
Power plant, yeah. Which model?
It's called the P12.
P12. Okay, it's one of the newer ones.
Yeah, it's one of the new ones. I had one that was 10 years old, and they've improved those multifold. The newer ones a lot better. They always have trade-in programs at PS Audio, so I traded in my old one, and they had a discount, and they made a pretty attractive deal.
Yeah, nice.
If you haven't played around with one of those things, you guys are welcome to come over to my house and see what the thing does. But it's a really great way, I think, to clean up the power in your house. And they come in different sizes for different capacity systems. I mean, my system doesn't suck up that much power, but if you have, something like that, then you might need their jumbo one, which is not inexpensive, or multiple of them. I think I even ran my old one with just my front end components going through it and not the amp, and that's a valid way to get a lot of benefit.
With the power amp, does it have enough juice to provide what the power amp needs, or?
Yeah, it does. That's one of the things that the new one has that the old one didn't. It has a meter that shows your utility of the power that's in it, and I got something like 40% headroom when I have everything plugged in. So I don't have any shortage of power from that.
Hey, I have some club business. I don't want to change the subject necessarily, but
Please do. We've exhausted.
when you guys get tired of, I'm enjoying what you're saying, Bill, really. But um, I've memorized two names from an email, and I don't want to forget them. That's. Can I go ahead?
Yeah,
Bill, are you done? Are you okay?
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. Does anybody here know somebody named Brian McCleary or Jim Chambers? Okay, if no one does, I got an email that was forwarded from the Audio Society website, and it was forwarded days after it was received. It just came in over the transom a couple days ago. This guy named Brian McCleary says his father died and left him a bunch of equipment, and would we be interested? And he also said, does anybody in the society know someone named Jim Chambers? And I didn't know whether I should pursue this, or it might be too late because it's been 3 weeks since the guy wrote the email. But I could do a follow-up email just even as a courtesy, and just see what. I don't know if he wants to sell the equipment or if he wants to give it. I think he might want to give it to the Audio Society. And I don't know if
Very
we would want
least,
to
you ought to
sell it.
acknowledge his email, you know.
Yeah, right. Well, I know it's been a couple of days, and it was kind of late getting to me, so I thought, wow, it's been so long. He's probably moved on, but in general, what's the policy, and should I just? I don't want to just give him a non-committal answer, but I can engage him to see if would the club be interested in inheriting some fairly nice equipment or not.
I think we ought to find out what he's got, and you can tell him, you know, we have limited capacity to take things, but if there's something we find really appealing, we might want to look at it. And then at the very least, if somebody wants an easy solution, you can always refer them to Hawthorne Stereo. So
yeah. Under normal circumstances, that's what I would do. I just don't even know if they're open these days. So, but
I don't know, but they do a lot of online work, so they might be literally just for that.
I think that might be the key there too, is just to say, you know, I mean, if, you know, obviously, you know, extend our condolences, but, you know, if they want to get rid of stuff, we'd have to figure out how to take receipt of it. And then also on top of that, we'd need to figure out, you know, the club's interest. And then if the club wasn't interested in anything, I think they would need to understand, just to be upfront with them, like, if you give this to us and their club votes that we don't actually want to keep it as part of the club, you know, equipment, then what we would do is sell it and raise funds for the club. And if you're okay with that, then we would be happy to take these things off of your hand, pending, you know, an acceptable logistical solution can be found for transferring the items. Right? Like, I don't think there's a, you know, you just got to figure out I think the more, anyway, that's what I'm saying.
Tim, why don't you bring this up to the EC? We can discuss, and we have a separate executive committee that's responsible for these kind of discussions. So
yeah,
it's hard to gauge with the general audience what to do, but we can make a decision within the EC. These are falling within the boundaries of the EC to discuss and figure out. So let's
sure.
do
My
that.
apologies if that question was inappropriate. It's just been.
It's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
It might be a more efficient way of handling it rather than in this short meeting here. Because talking about the meeting time, I just got a notice saying that our meeting is going to end in like 5-10 minutes. So I have another meeting scheduled after this one, thinking that we might be kicked out. We have a free account, first of all. If we like the Zoom, we can consider upgrading to a paid service. That might remove some of the limitations. We can have however many long meeting we want. So that's one thing we can discuss within the EC as well, and bring up to the membership for the next time if you want to do it. For now, I put in the chat channel the information for the next meeting. So if you go to the chat within the Zoom, just copy that information. In case we get kicked out, you can join back using that meeting information. There's another meeting that I put in there. Okay. And I didn't want to send it with the original meeting because then people will be confused and dialing to different meetings and stuff. So this way, 1:30, there's another meeting starts up. In case we get kicked out, let's continue that another half an hour. So, and then we'll figure out for the future what to do for lengthy meetings. Good. Any other topics? Randy, you had some good suggestions in the past to me. So you want to talk about speaker placement, or is it too early for that share that with the members? We
I
don't
have
hear
a
you.
question. I have a question
Yeah.
that is probably appropriate for this venue. I'm looking for some good online sources to download music. And if the club can make any suggestions there, I think now is a very appropriate time to be sharing this kind of information.
Oh, I got some links I can post. That's pretty easy to make some recommendations on. Let's see, I think one would be, I'll put these in chat, hdtracks.com. Another one would be prostudiomasters.com. Obviously, there's streaming services like Tidal, which are great. Oh, if I actually could put the, sorry, typo. And then I think Analog Sounds has or Acoustic Sounds rather, has a online store as well that will let you do downloads here. And I think those three largely cover, and there's others. There's like 2l.no, I think, is another one that does that. And then let's see, what's another one?
PNWAS.
Well, yes, and then there's various services such as like Tidal.com, Qobuz.com for streaming, right? So, and Qobuz actually does sell actual downloads as well. If you get a membership with them at a certain level, they also sell discrete. It might be for any level. They sell actual purchases, but then if you buy a membership with Qobuz at a certain level, they give you discounts on every download that you want to buy and purchase for keeps. So you have multiple options there. And then let's see, what's the other one that I used to use all the time? That's nativedsd.com is the other one, I think. So if you like DSD music, Native DSD has an awful lot of good stuff. They also have a lot of samples. One of the things I like about Native DSD is they regularly kind of have sort of samplers and weekly sort of like free tracks and stuff that you can get that are meant to tease you into purchasing full albums, but you can take advantage of that a lot of the times to figure out if this particular work or production is of interest to you. So and they do a lot of like regular specials and sales, like album of the week and things like that. So that's my list of stuff. We could actually probably put some of these things on the website, Max, and then have these as a persistent resource for the club.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that. I try to save this, but I cannot save it right now. But if you can just shoot me an email, I try to capture.
Put this out in there.
Yeah, we can do all that. Yep. That'll be good.
Sure.
One of the things I like to do.
Great question, Baron, by the way.
Yeah, so maybe if you put together an email and send it out, that would be appreciated.
Yep. Yeah, we'll put that together on the website, and then we'll have a link sent out. Maybe Tim can send out an email to the club announcing, both reminding people about the website location as well as, and by the way, here's a list of music downloads we put up on the club website for you guys to enjoy.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
What I like to do often is if you go to YouTube and find your favorite music video you want to download, the software you can get that it's either free or $10 kind of thing, where you can download stuff from YouTube, and then you can, if you want, extract out the audio only from MP4 files.
Yeah.
And I've done that for a lot of nice music I found. Sometimes you can find a whole concert. I mean, I've got a couple of things that are hour and 15-minute long concerts.
That is doable. I don't know that at the club we would want to promote that because technically it's not legal.
I like to do a similar thing, but I go find the artists I like on YouTube, and then often they have their website listed, in the comments for the YouTube video, and then you can go directly to the performer's website and buy it from them, so they get the most income that way.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you'll get, you know, signed stuff for free from the artists because they're super happy to interact with people directly.
Well, that's cool. I didn't know about that.
Say again?
Or are you using a Teams key, or do you really live with Bilbo and Frodo?
Oh, me? Yeah. No,
It looks like
see,
you're
there's a
keyed
hobbit.
in.
There's a hobbit right here.
Yeah. Well, no, it looks like
it's-
you're keyed.
Yeah. It's Frodo because he's you know, because he keeps disappearing. He puts the ring on and he disappears. There he goes.
Right. There. Yeah.
Hey, how come nobody told me about that when my kids were little?
I know, right?
If they bother you too much, you make them disappear, right?
Yeah, no, I'm using a virtual background.
Yeah.
I do so many Teams meetings and whatnot. I'm always having to
Right.
change it up because life is very boring otherwise.
Want to see Voltron separate?
Do I want to see Voltron separate? Sure.
Anything else?
Well, as long as
Anybody
we were
else? What were we talking about? We were talking about YouTube, but yeah, what else is there?
As long as we were talking about my life of crime, I got this. I have a whole bunch of SACDs, and my PS Audio DAC sounds much better than my CD player that plays the SACDs. So I got this idea that I wanted to rip them so that I could play them through my DAC. And then I read this whole long story about if you got the exact right version of an early PlayStation 2, it's hackable, and somebody had put up software to basically rip an SACD just like you would a CD. And so I went and did that. You know, I have to understand, I'm not a computer geek. So I'm doing this very tentatively and wasn't sure it was all going to work. And sure enough, it did. And I've got all 60 of my SACDs ripped now.
I'm impressed that you were able to find the exact right version of an old PlayStation that would do that.
It took 2 times before I got the exact right one.
Yeah, I have an old PlayStation 3 that you can do that on, except that I foolishly was a gamer and actually let it go on auto update, and it auto updated itself just past the last firmware that you could actually apply the ripping hack to. And by the time I noticed it and knew what I could have done with it had I just left the thing offline, it was just like, oh. But
Yeah,
there are a
they're
number
hard to
of
find.
players. There
They're
are a
hard
number
to
of players
find
you can do
because
that
of
to
that
now.
auto upgrade.
Right.
Essentially, they self-patch the hole.
Right. You know, so yeah, there's actually a computer audiophile now called audiophilestyle.com forum post that's long running that has a lot of great information about SACD ripping and all of the different disc players that you can buy that will support it, and the different software methods for doing it. That is a great resource that I think kind of started off as a, hey, you can use a PlayStation to do this, and it's evolved into, oh, and this Blu-ray player will do it, and this Blu-ray player will do it, and you know, but it's all kind of hit and miss through different firmware versions, and at least it widens the space up so that you're not hunting the unicorn of the one PS3 that still has the old version, right?
I didn't even have to pay that much for it, but at some point in time, I'll probably sell it and see how much I can get for it at the time.
Yeah, I would recommend selling it soon. If you're going to get rid of it, sell it sooner rather than later, mostly because those old PlayStation drives don't last forever. The one drive that I have is on the fritz anyway. I think the fluid leaks out of the bearing assembly at some point, and then they just don't read discs very well, and you end up getting lubricant on the surface of your discs when you eject them, and it's just not a good story for anybody. So get your money while you can. Don't sit on it.
But I keep on saying I may accumulate another couple of SACDs, you know?
Yeah.
I don't see them very often, but
Well, and
anyway.
that's the tragedy is that, like, for example, like Mobile Fidelity, I've been bugging them for years. Like, would you please offer downloads? And unfortunately, they keep saying they're thinking about it, but probably not. And I think the reason why is a lot of the value of their offerings they have driven by the artificial scarcity of the number of discs they produce of any given release. It's always X of so many thousand. And they realize that if they go to a download version, well, who cares if you have a limited edition release of a printed form of media that is infinitely available as a download online in a more pristine format? I mean, you don't have to worry about ripping accuracy. You have 100% bit perfect bits delivered to you over the internet. So they're kind of hesitant to do that. And there's also licensing considerations as well. But they have, I mean, arguably some of the best, reproduced music out there, at their fingertips. Everybody loves MoFi for the most part. And so, but it's a shame because it means that if you want MoFi on your DAC without having to play it through, an SACD, you have to play it through a physical transport, or you have to get a ripping solution like Bill has to actually lift the bits off the disk so that you can get it onto your DAC, which is really, really sad. Free the music.
I want to hear other true confessions of crimes from you guys,
So I found something that might be useful. I was telling Dana about it the other day. This is Renan here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I can see you.
Okay, good. So I was wondering, I use JRiver to play all my files through my DAC. And I thought, is there a way in JRiver to listen to radio stations and stream them through JRiver? And it turns out that there is. I did not know that. You have to enter so on the file, if you do use JRiver on the file menu, there's open URL. And you paste in the URL of the radio station, the streaming radio station URL.
Yeah.
And then it picks it up and it just plays it, and you can save it in the menu there, and for future use. And it sounds really good because you can have it run through the DSP system of JRiver,
Yeah.
and you can upsample the incoming stream, and you can make it sound better than it would if you were to just play it on some cheap or radio station device over the internet through a browser. You know what I mean? Through their own tuner on a browser. So I got KNKX Jazz on there, and it sounds really good. I got King FM on there, and I can send anyone the links if they happen to listen to those two stations. But you can find more of these URL links by doing a search, in Google for radio station URL streaming links, and then get the link that you can go to directly, as opposed to the one that goes through their tuner to their tuner. You want to get a straight stream coming in. So Dana has been using it and likes it too, right? Are you there, Dana?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
It's very good.
I thought that worked out well. And I suppose there's more. You can add a lot of these radio stations to it as you go along. But it makes it convenient because you could play it out over your big system that way. Because anyway, JRiver is playing your music through your DAC out into your big system. This way you do the same thing, you just go out through JRiver.
It's really cool. It's almost like the old AM/FM receiver, combo, but with your hi-fi and internet.
Hey, Matt.
Right. Just one
step better than
what's currently offered. And sometimes you get DACs with streaming radio options and built into them. Well, my DAC doesn't have that. So I wanted to find a way that I could listen to radio through my DAC, through my system out, but properly, not where I could get good quality. And it turns out you can do that.
Yeah, I've been using this
That's
little
the
thing
kind
for
of
my kids.
information I think.
It's a tiny little radio with a battery, and you just turn it on. It is not a hi-fi solution at all, but it does Bluetooth, and you can kind of just get your radio on that way, and it'll. But it's a totally analog experience, so you can just kind of.
Hey, Renan.
Yes.
Have you kept up with internet streaming technology? My radio knowledge is kind several years old. When I used to work for KEXP, the highest stream that we had was AAC 64. Is it? Can you tell what
Yeah,
stations are putting out?
Yeah, I sent, Dana, remember I sent you the email which listed all the streams and the
Yeah.
bit rates. So I chose the highest one.
Uh-huh.
They give you several options, many of them. So for the jazz station, KNKX, I think there's about 4 options. I can't
okay.
remember the speeds, but I chose the highest one and then I upsampled that too in DSP and J River. So it sounds very good. I mean, it's obviously not going to be as good as listening to the original CD through, or your own FLAC file of that particular piece of music that you may have ripped from CD through your DAC. But it's better than I don't know. It's better than just listening to it on your computer or on your phone, or trying to plug your phone into your hi-fi system and sending the output through there. So it's definitely a step up, I would say, in that sense.
Could you? That's the
But
kind
anyway,
of information
go ahead, Dana.
I'm looking for.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
could you send it to me?
You're gonna see.
I'd like it too.
Yeah, we should post that actually. Yeah, if you can send
Yeah.
it to me, Renan, I'll post it on the website.
I will.
So yeah.
So Max, if you
I-
could let me share my screen, I'll have a couple
Oh.
comments to make about J River as
The
well.
one
Sure.
I
Let
got.
me just do that.
Stations around the world.
Actually, I'll make you the host, and I think you can share it.
Okay.
Let's see.
See what happens here. Great. Okay, let's see. So let's see if this works. Okay. Maybe you see my J River screen?
Yeah, I see it.
Cool. So yeah, after talking with Renan about streaming stuff over the network just locally in my house, I don't know if maybe he made me aware of this or I can't remember, but this whole idea of this playing now, I had ignored this tab because it always just sat here in the menu and I didn't know what it was. And I'd go in here and pick something to play like usual. But this is all the different devices that you can send music to.
Yep.
So it's a list of the devices on your network. So you'll see here's my Bravia TV of all things. So, 5 years ago when I bought this, I plugged it in and hooked it to Wi-Fi, and there it is, just shows up in here as a device on my network. So if I click on this, now what the interface is doing is now it's all the things I do now are related to what will go to the Bravia. So if I come over here and pick audio and I pick an album and hit play, it'll start playing out of my TV upstairs.
Yeah, and you can see the hint up top under where it says J River Media Center, what device it's going to.
Yeah,
that's right. And all then the devices that J River picks up are the UPnP devices. The universal
DLNA.
plug and play devices, and DLNA are the other devices as well. So it's kind of cool if you happen to have a DAC that is discoverable over UPnP or DLNA, such as the Merging Technologies DAC. If it's hooked to your network via Ethernet, you can be streaming your music through J River, very easily out to that DAC and out to your system, without even needing a separate sound card or anything like that. Just streams it straight out through the drivers that are supplied.
Yeah. So what I did here, I've got Duck PC. This is an old laptop. It's like an 8-year-old laptop I had sitting around. So I loaded J River on it, and now I've got it out in my listening room, hooked up to my large speakers. And so, from here I can just go and launch, and I'm playing music. Maybe you can even hear it.
I can hear it. Is it playing out in your main living room?
So yeah, and I can adjust the volume out there.
That's incredible. Very nice.
And so now that's playing my speakers. So the laptop, I plugged in a sound card, external USB sound card that puts out SPDIF, and it goes to my digital crossovers, and it's playing those huge 4-way speakers. So that was the one thing I wanted to show. If you weren't unfamiliar with that, I was really pleased to find that. Now, if I can find my way back to picking a different.
With that one, what I was playing with it too, and I use it all the time. One thing that is kind of confusing, at least for me, is I cannot tell what's the bit rate and what kind of information is being sent out, or what is the format that is being used. In the DLNA settings, you can actually go and set original, keep the original and all that, but
right.
For the device that doesn't really show what it is receiving, it's kind of confusing. Especially I'm using my phone to actually stream. I don't use the PC, I use the phone to actually stream into different devices through the phone, control through the phone. But is phone in the way of actually converting the formats and messing up with things, or is it like a direct connection from the server to through my phone, controlling it and accessing directly from the server to the DLNA device? That's the part that is still confusing for me, and I couldn't figure out what's the format that's being sent out.
Right.
But yeah.
I have an Oppo CD player, just like the club has, and could I use that to do what you're saying?
I think Oppo's will do
Dana,
DLNA targeting.
I think you're sharing your screen still, or
I am. I had one other thing. Yeah, I don't know about particular devices, Baron, but maybe somebody's familiar with that could answer.
Darren, I have Oppo 105. I use it extensively for everything that I do. So all the music DNA and all that stuff. So you can ask me. Just send me an email or something.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So the other thing I wanted to mention. So of course JRIVER is great because, as Renan mentioned, you can load equalizer settings into a large like DRC digital room correction filters. But if you don't happen to have JRIVER and you want to run a FIR filter, a digital room correction filter, there is this thing called Equalizer APO that I was aware of before. Gary Geselshin mentioned it to me, and he said, "Gee, it's a shame, I don't think it'll run those FIR filters." And I looked into it, and surely it does run FIR filters. This is the website where you download it. People often use this with Room EQ Wizard, which doesn't create the 1,000 tap or 12,000 tap FIR filters, but you can take that Align 2 software I talked about, or the DRC software, any other software that you can get that will generate, your 12,000 tap or your 50,000 tap FIR filter, and you can load it directly into this Equalizer APO. It's really easy. You download it here. It has a nice, I don't have it loaded on this particular device to show you, but here's the path to it and everything you can see. I'll put it in the comments or whatever. And it works seamlessly. You load it on a PC, and then what it does is it will insert a filter between whatever you're playing on your PC and the sound card. So it comes up with a little matrix, and you say, oh, for this audio output, I want to run this filter. Or for this audio input, I want to run a different filter. So you can really use it to customize the filtering between any source and any sync for audio on a PC. And they probably have it, all you can see here, one's on Windows. They may have another version for Linux or something, but and it has in it, graphic equalizers. It's got parametric equalizers. It's got just about anything you can dream of. It's in there. It's free. So I highly recommend you take a look at that if you're at all interested in exploring the that kind of option. So
I think a good topic for the next meeting, Max, would be, to talk a little bit about all your experience with DLNA. Sure. And how you've set it up at home and so on. There's not enough time in this meeting, but for example, in another meeting, that would be a great topic, because many of us would like to do that.
Sure.
Too.
Sure. Yeah. We can do that next time around. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So in other words, network audio. How do you send bits out over your network?
Yeah.
because it's much better than better quality than sending it out through USB by
Yeah.
far. So how do you
Yeah.
do that? And what devices can you use it with, and so forth? What kind of a DAC? That
I
would
mean,
be
I can briefly mention it over here. I use Oppo 105,
okay.
and all my music files are on a NAS network attached storage device with
Excellent.
mirror configuration in it. All
And
SSD base. So, and I have a local gigabit Ethernet network
mhm.
with my router. And I have my files sitting next to my computer, and my main system is in the basement, and I actually wirelessly stream to it. So, and I have no issues with it.
No, but what do you use to play the music?
I use JRiver.
JRiver.
Yeah,
Okay.
just like you were doing, and then
Okay,
I can
great.
show.
Yeah, that
I'm
would
not
be
set up
good
for.
because then the Oppo is discoverable as
Yeah.
a DLNA device by JRiver. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just good to see. Many people won't really understand this unless you show it
Sure.
or explain it
Sure.
better.
Maybe
And I
what
think
we
that's
can. Yeah, go ahead.
excellent to do things.
Yeah,
Really
let's do
excellent.
that.
Yeah.
I can cover the JRiver. If anybody wants to chime in, that's fine too.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of us are using different software, so we don't want to tie specific to JRiver. If you have your
No, but
favorite
I mean, it's the
software,
idea of using DLNA,
but it
going
shows
over
you
a
what it
network.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
It's a similar idea to Roon, but it's
Yeah.
cheaper. You
Yeah.
don't have to pay a subscription to
Yeah.
do that either. You can play any music through there, not just through Roon.
Correct. Yeah.
By the
Anyway,
way, you were talking about radio stations before. For
Yeah.
those who are jazz fans, TSF in Paris is a fabulous station.
Oh, wow. T as in Tom, SF?
Yes, T as in Tom, TSF Paris.
TS, F as in France? I can't, I'm not getting it exactly.
TSF in Paris, France.
Okay, TSF in Paris, France. Good. All right. We'll look that
That's
up.
sort of like Tunes Sans Frontières, huh? So,
Okay.
bad joke.
Yeah, and we could check and see if they've got a direct link to to stream it directly into your own player.
It does.
That would be great.
I have it streaming through Room. The hard part, I think, is to find the streaming sites as opposed to.
Yes, it is hard to find the stream site, but you can't find them. It takes a little bit of sleuthing, but you can.
So I've been trying to capture some of this information and sending it out as a reply all to the, and this is actually just what I've been doing is replying to our EC thread. So hopefully like this will at least give us a place where some of us can see these and then we can collect these and put them on the website for broader sharing.
Yep.
Thanks for the equalizer APO tip, by the way. On the subject of tips, very quickly, I wanted to share something that I've been playing with recently, and that's this little guy. This is a battery pack from a company called PowerAd, and this is particularly the PowerAd Pilot Pro 5. Let me turn my background off so it stops doing the thing here, because obviously it's going to mute my camera. Here we go. So this is the PowerAd Pilot Pro 5. And it's a very big, as you see, 30,000 milliamp hour battery pack. But the cool thing about it is it has multiple outputs that allow you to do some really neat things. I don't know if that's gonna autofocus or not. It allows you to do some really neat things. What you've got here is you've got your typical DC input, but you also have a USB quick charge 3.0 output for your smart device, your tablet that can use the higher wattage charging. You also have a Type C that does power delivery for even faster charging for devices that support it. You have a standard 5 volt 2.4 amp USB output for devices that need up to 2-ish amps at 5 volts, which surprisingly covers a range of interesting audio devices. But the really cool thing in the bell of the ball is this is a DC output on your typical kind of like 2.1 by 5.5 mil like barrel connector.
Okay.
And the pilot itself, it has a screen that tells you how much power's left, and if you hold it down, you can actually change the output mode I can get this thing to work, if it'll show, there you go. It says DC 20 volt right now, kind of flashing. And then you can keep clicking it once it comes up with that power rating. And you can basically select between 20 volts, 12 volts, 16 volts, or 9-volt output. And this means that you can power all kinds of amazing things for amazingly long times with this sucker, completely disconnected from ground. Which means that you have no leakage noise whatsoever from all of the RF crap in your house and everything else that comes through the ground plane into your devices for things that are powered by DC, which is almost everything on the other side of the wall wart, right? So, I've got a couple of these bad boys, and I've been using it to power my DAC, my little cutest DAC, plus the if I want to do a mobile solution, like if I want to take good quality sound on the road, I've got my phone on one end. I run another one of these things into, I've got a little linear, like an Uptone Audio LPS 1.2 power supply, which is a super cap power supply buffer. But I run this thing into the back end of it so that it can have power. And then my DAC has power from the other power, the Pilot Pro battery. And I'm completely off the grid. I've got a battery pack with my phone source, and the internet data comes in here. I cache like Tidal music on this thing, or Kabuzz, or whatever else I want to do for high res. And then I use a cable adapter to spit it out to my outboard DAC. And, all of a sudden I've got amazing sound, completely disconnected from everything. If I want to run headphone amplifier, I have a mass drop, that THX 789 that came out a while ago. And interestingly enough, I haven't teamed up on this yet. This is my next experiment. Apparently it takes about a 24-volt input. So what I was kind of wondering is if I could basically pair up a couple of these batteries and get myself, a 24-volt input with like a Y adapter or something, and basically get it off the grid as well. And then I could just have a completely fully battery powered hi-fi system, that's completely isolated from my house. And I thought that would be kind of nifty. So, but anyway, you can find these things on Amazon. They, depending on which ones you get, like there's the Pilot Pro 2 and the 5 are both well regarded on the computer audiophile, or the audiophile style website forums. And the 5 is the big hoss that lasts forever, huge power bank, and they do really well. And they're in the ballpark of, depending on which one you get, about $100 to $150. And I found two of these guys refurbished, on Amazon for like, I think something like less than $100 each. So for the price of, I think they basically got two for the price of one, and they came in the box and they looked brand new. So somebody might have used them for a few hours and returned it. I mean, who knows? But anyway, great deals to be had. But the boost that I've gotten from everything I've plugged into it in terms of sound quality has been, I mean, on the level of, somewhere between maybe half of what you would expect from a pretty substantial component upgrade. It's just like, it's a big step. It's not like, oh yeah, that sounds a little better. It's like, wow, there's clarity, there's loss of noise floor, there's just, I mean, everything just kind of takes a huge lift. And a last note on this, a lot of the guys on the audio forums have been talking about, if you take something like this and then you run it through either a single stage or a double stage voltage regulator, to step it down, say like you take the 9-volt output, if you drop it down to 7 and then down to 5 for a device that needs 5 volts like my DAC, the sound quality just takes another step up in awesome, because of course you have a very, very stable voltage source, and obviously your voltage stability is everything when it comes to the output quality of your DAC. So anyway,
What's it called again, please?
Yeah, this is called the Power ADD, and then the device is the model is the Pilot Pro 5. I don't know if that's coming in there, but very versatile. The other cool thing is with them available and basically always powered up, because I'm kind of sort of trickle charging them all the time. If the power goes out, we got 60,000 milliamp hours of battery life we could plug into whatever we need. So, they serve also, double duty as a very practical household item. So,
Cool.
I
Thank you.
think this has been a really great meeting, and I'm I'm impressed with how it's working out. We're sharing things that maybe we wouldn't in the regular meetings. So I think very good.
Thanks, Baron.
Hey, Jeremy, is that, if we ever have a real in-person meeting again, I wonder if a demonstration of that power ad would be doable with the club system.
Well,
Just
it
the,
depends on the voltages required for things, but you know, I mean, because obviously you can't power a loudspeaker power amplifier with them. It'd run out of
Right.
juice very fast. But
right,
but when it comes to like powering like the Oppo, the Oppo it doesn't take DC, it takes an AC input. It has its own internal power source. So the problem is you can only power things that just take DC directly.
right. Yeah.
But you know, it could be a difference between like showing off, like if I were to bring in the cord DAC, for example, which takes a 5-volt input, I could show off the difference between using the stock power supply versus plugging in this thing, plugging into a battery. And we just kind of see like, okay, here's the, you know, what differences do we hear? I thought on my headphones, I heard some very substantial differences. So, you know, it hopefully would show off as well on a loudspeaker setup in the room. And I'm about to set things up in my room as well. Anyway, I don't want to take further time. I know we have limited time on the meetings and I want to give other people a chance to share. So, but
Talking about time, I schedule to get another one. This is going to expire in 10 minutes, but for the ones of you who would like to continue a discussion, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm just going to end in about 5 to 10 minutes. But just copy it again if you're interested in joining the follow-up, so we can have another half an hour, but that'll be it, I think.
Great.
So in the chat channel, I posted the meeting information there. So, yeah. And let's try to get this maybe paid for the membership at least until we resume normal mode of operation. I think this is useful for us to consider.
Let's do.
I'll open up for the EC committee approval, and then we'll go from there. So I don't think we need a full membership approval for this. It's useful, I think, in general for everybody involved here. So. Any other topic? Sorry, I don't want to cut into it, but yeah, Jeremy, whatever you need to continue, questions is fine.
No, I was yielding
Max?
the floor. It's totally,
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Jeff. Yeah.
So I don't know if the club qualifies, but Zoom does have a nonprofit rate available. I'm not sure if the club would qualify under that. I can send you a link for some things that for my nonprofit job outside of audio things that the club may qualify for that for the paid version.
Okay, I think that'll be qualified. Yeah, that's fine. I think we're nonprofit, so we should. Yeah, just send me the link or information. Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Excellent.
Yeah. Do you have my email? I think from before, right? So yeah.
Yes.
Any other topics?
I do have my Townsend seismic podiums installed in my system now.
Oh yeah, nice.
And Bill and I have been kind of talking about isolation type stuff. And so this is, if you can kind of see these, if I can get down low enough. I don't know if I've got the camera angled with, wait a second, hold on. Can you see those at all or not?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're kind of wiggly, you know, they're actually on springs. And it really made quite a bit of difference in the system.
And those you're using on your carpet, is that right?
Yeah, I was going to use the Gaia's, but they were going to raise up my speakers too high by the time I got them figured out. And so I found these on, they're quite expensive if you buy them normal retail. But I got them on eBay, kind of direct from the factory kind of a deal. So they're like half price. They have like five different sizes. This is the third size. This is the third biggest size, and they have two smaller. This is a 3. They go up to 5. Quite a bit of difference in the sound. That really tightened up the bass because I'm on a suspended floor on the second floor. tightened up the bass quite a bit, more definitive plucking of bass notes. It kind of cleared out a bunch of haze just from probably stuff being transmitted, opened up the sound stage. The instruments are better placed. So there was it was a pretty good improvement. So
that's the same as I found using the, what do they call them? Isoacoustics
yeah.
product, and it's huge improvement.
Yeah. So they're pretty cool. And I did move my speakers, by the way. I was telling Max earlier, I had my speakers set up. I was using some mathematical algorithms of thirds, fifths, and a bunch of other stuff. And I had this kind of node at about 80 to 90 cycles, and it just kind of been bothering me. So I said, I'm gonna do something different. So I took the speakers out, and I used the Wilson Audio technique of voicing it on a wall and just talking, and then finding a spot where it sounded good and keep moving on until it kind of deteriorated. Do that from the front wall and the side walls. My brother, who's kind of a recording engineer, came out. He was listening to the voice, so where I maybe should put the speakers, and I got about 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet area that it sounded pretty good, and that's where I moved him. I actually moved him closer to the front wall by 2 feet. So I had him out 6 feet. I moved him back to 4 feet from the front baffle, and then that made a substantial improvement in that one note. It took it down about 6 dB, so that was pretty significant. So
that's really awesome, Randy. Thank you.
Yeah, this, like, most people try to go far away from the wall.
I know.
But in your experience, going back actually made it even better.
It was completely counterintuitive to what I thought I should be doing. That voicing technique from Wilson Audio, instead of doing all the parametric, the analyzers and stuff, just use your ears. If somebody has good ears, you'll find that spot pretty easily. It only took us about an hour and 15 minutes to get them kind of set up. So it was pretty quick. So
could you maybe send out a link for the? Yeah, well, I have to say for your.
Yeah, I think Max, you found it, didn't you?
Is that the one? Is that the one you use? Okay, yeah, I have it then. I have the link. I'll include it in the meet. I'll update the meeting notes with this information and additional data. So
just to be clear, the link that I think both links, like the link for like the room setup advice is great. That would help everybody very easily. The other thing I was curious about is the link to maybe the eBay seller and/or auction that you used for the speaker isolation bases would be really interesting.
Yeah, I'll get that out too. So I can tell you, these particular bases, if you paid normal retail, they were $3,000.
Yeah, that's why I want the link.
So I got them for, I think it was probably about $1,500, which I didn't think was too bad. I mean, they're really heavy duty. I mean, they're really well designed, and I figured if I didn't like them, I could always sell them and probably not lose any money. So
what's fascinating about that is the difference in approaches that people take to isolation and resonance and all of that stuff, right? Like, some resonance out and get rid of it, right? And others are like, well, you want to keep harmful resonance from getting into the devices, so you need to isolate the device, and so you get these two different camps, like, Nordost and still points and whatnot. They're all about, let's couple something to the device, whether it's a player or a speaker or a whatever, and then suck the resonance out of it effectively by giving it an opportunistic path, and then either convert it into heat using like what do they call them? Technology pockets is the still points term, and there's like ceramic bearings and stuff that are in the Nordost solutions, and the whole idea is to like drain it and convert it and dissipate it, and they always talk about that being what you want, because then you're not letting the thing sort of build up its own internal resonance reflections and causing kind of this kind of ever increasing amount of blurring to your sound. But then there's other people who are like, yeah, but the stuff coming in from outside is.
And so I said, and I've been doing a lot of research on suspended floors. If you live on a second story or a regular floor with, if you don't have concrete floors, okay, you're basically treating your floors becoming a bass drum in a certain way. And I know you're probably getting some smearing, and then the bass, was not as tight as I wanted it to be. So I said, well, I'll just try this, because I read a lot of reviews on it, and Max Townsend has been around for years and years and years and years. I mean, he's been doing this since probably the 70s with his stuff. So he's quite accomplished at what he does. And so that's kind of what drove me to it. So
I'm just curious, based on what you mentioned. So you got me thinking now. So if the goal is suspension, so have you considered something from the ceiling coming down and then build a platform and then suspend from the ceiling and then put it on top of it? Because it's floating, right? So that's completely isolated from the ground.
Right. I think people have tried that in the past. I don't know what their success rate has been. You know,
Just
but
curious. So
yeah.
Because I was watching YouTube and then there was this interesting little device that they were showing. It's like floating. It gives the illusion of floating, but it's actually suspended from like a pivot point. And it has some supports, strings on the four corners. So it doesn't go out of balance, but it is suspended from it with a thin thread. So it gives the illusion that it's actually magnetically floating on top of the other thing that's above it. So,
well, which kind of begs the question, like, why not actually build a magnetically floating isolation base and then just throw your speakers on that, and then it is floating, and anything it communicates is going to have to go through that air gap, right? That'd be another interesting way to do it.
But it's similar to what you got though, Randy, right? I mean, that's similar to.
It's tied. It's on spring. It's basically on springs.
Springs.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's what.
Right. Which will slow down the transmission of the energy, right?
Yeah.
So that's a fascinating, and I think that's the key. Like you mentioned, the floating, the floating floor is or suspended floor. You want to decouple from that, because otherwise, you're right. You turn it into this big base reflex thing, right? So.
Yeah,
fascinating.
I had tried other devices like Herbie's. I think Herbie's has some things he advertises about, his isolation pods, but I tried those and they didn't do it for me. I had them spiked to the floor, and they didn't sound bad, but then I took the spikes out and it sounded about the same as without the spikes. So I said, okay, well, maybe it's really not truly all the spiking that's going on. So it was kind of a fascinating little journey of, trying to figure out what sounded best. So.
I'm wondering if these things would have made the old women's club room sound better for us, because man, that was.
I was thinking of the same thing. I said, wonder if this would have solved our problem with the women's club.
That or just filling the basement with concrete, one of the two. I don't know.
Well, even when he does his demonstration, he does his demonstration showing it on concrete floors too. And that it actually has a positive impact on concrete floors from the transient hit. If you stomp your foot on concrete without them, it'll hit the initial peak will hit, and then it kind of reverberates it out. But with these things, the initial hits is there, but the reverberations, there aren't any.
Nice.
So it was just kind of interesting. A lot of good stuff.
Great find, Randy. Looking forward to seeing the links.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are all way ahead of me. I'm a relatively new member of the club, and my equipment is not nearly as esoteric, but I wonder about a question. This might open up a can of worms, but I'm at a point where, I bought a decent dual turntable years ago when I bought my first system in the early 80s. Basically ran it until, because I didn't know any better, my stylus was worn to the point where it was damaging my records. So then I put it away. That was the era of CDs, raising 4 daughters, not any money to spend on stereo stuff. So anyway, a few years ago, I got back into playing my records and have been collecting more of them. So I've got kind of sort of entry-level stuff. I've got a Project Debut Carbon with the stock 2M red stylus, and then I have a Bellari phono stage, and I'm really wanting to improve, but I don't have a ton of cash, and I'm just wondering philosophically, which of those 3 elements do you think should be the first upgrade? I'm actually looking at, I've had this, I've had it for about 4 years now, so I think my stylus is probably getting down there. I'm actually taking into John over at Audio Connection in U District to take it next week. So I'm kind of thinking it's time for a new, at least stylus, if not a new cartridge anyway. but I also am feeling like the phono stage is probably a really weak link. So I just wonder what advice you guys might have if I'm looking for a, best bang for the buck improvement on that.
If I may, I actually, is that a VP 130, like the Bellari, the little tube?
It's it's the one with the little tube, but it's actually it's the 530 because
okay.
I got one with USB out because I got ancient records from my high school choir that I wanted to digitize.
Nice. I actually had that was my exact setup was my, except for the 5. I had the 130 without the USB. Was my exact introduction to vinyl. That was my first turntable that I had. That wasn't like something I got from my dad. The one that I bought. And with the 2M red, and that was the phono pre that I found that was sort of in the budget, about $300 or something, that I had my wife get me as sort of like a Father's Day gift, right? So I lived with that system for a number of years, and it was great in terms of, hey, I could play vinyl again, right? And it actually had some fun to it. The 2 recommendations I would make that won't break the bank is I would look at buying a good quality vintage tube for the Bellari to replace it. And there are a few guys in here, I'm sure, that could probably give great advice on tubes. I can't remember if that's a 12AX7 or what it is that it uses, but replace the tube is one step. The other one, though, is you're only going to be able to do as well as what you're getting out of the grooves. And you already identified that your cartridge is probably a little bit old. Stepping up to either the black or stepping sideways, both up and sideways, to a different brand, like, for example, like a HANA cartridge that I think they're 2.8 or what is it? Their SH or something would be a good one. It's under $1,000. And the nice thing about the cartridge is, of course, if you decide to replace the turntable or something else at some point in time, you pop that sucker off and put it on your new turntable, assuming it's of better quality than whatever the next platform is you get. So both of those would be great investments you can make for under $1,000 that should give you significant gains.
Yeah, that's interesting about the tube, because I understand it's kind of a hybrid, preamp. It's got the op amps, as well. So I didn't know how much of a difference it would really make. It almost feels like the tube is there for decoration.
I think the answer, unfortunately, when you're dealing with tiny, especially when you're dealing with low output signals like that, when it comes to power, everything matters. Everything matters. The cables matter. The tube matters. The wires in and the wires out matter. All of it matters. And the more I look at, the reason I'm playing so much around with these battery packs is because I'm finding that the cleaner the power supply you have and the more stable the voltage you have, it's the rising tide that lifts all the boats. So yeah, anything you can do to improve your power foundation is money well spent. That's
a good idea. I'll look into the tube because that's a real cheap upgrade. One other question, I wondered if any of you guys have done any of the bottlehead kits. I've looked at their Eros 2 phono preamp and have one. I've not done much soldering at all. I'm certainly not an electronics geek, but I'd be willing to try, and that sounded like maybe a good way to get a good bang for the buck too, because you're saving, the manufacturing cost of somebody is at least assembling the thing.
What I heard in general, I was involved with amplification and stuff, but in general, the phono preamps are probably considered difficult to do, to get low noise and good response, frequency response, and balanced sound out of it, because you're, like Jeremy mentioned, you are dealing with very minor signal levels, and it needs to have a high amplification factor. So it becomes a bit difficult to get good results if you do it for the first time yourself.
Yeah,
that's what I heard. But so.
Hey, so Max, when we had the Puffin guys come in, with their little. I bought that phono preamp.
Oh, yeah. How do you like it?
I really like it. I'm using it in my main system because I don't listen to vinyl that much. But what I noticed, I had a monolithic phono stage with a separate power supply prior to that, and I put this thing in. I love the thing because it's so flexible in the way you can load up all kinds of parameters. You can do moving coil, moving magnet. You can, it's all the stuff that you kind of want flexibility to do. Yeah. And it sounds just absolutely, I think it sounds wonderful. And actually Rich bought one and he's got it in a second system. So
I see.
and it was, I think it was like, is it $399 or something like that? It was, it was
Yeah,
pretty reasonable.
I heard that there's a recent upgrade or different version that came out that has a DEC output too. So David, regarding to what you're trying to use it for, like USB output and all that, that might be a good thing to check because that has a lot of flexibility. It's called Puffin, I think.
PUFFIN, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they make that model anymore. But is that Park
Audio, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do see it on Amazon right now. There's a Parks Audio Puffin Phono DSP Phono preamp.
Yep.
Yeah.
It has, I think, the digital output option, and if you have an older version, he also provides instructions how to actually add a digital out for it. It's pretty simple to do.
Yep.
Randy, you might want to check into this too if you want like digital output out of it for your DAC.
Yeah, Puffin is current. It's the budgie that they don't make anymore.
That's the tube version that they had, and we were kind of impressing him on, well, why'd you go to this digital and the sound, and he wouldn't really say specifically, but it was kind of a hint nod that this thing he liked it better, so that's why he went to the Puffin. So
yeah.
I know many guys actually who sold their mega dollar systems, phono preamps, and then bought the Puffin.
Wow.
So glad we brought it up, Randy. So that might be a good thing to check. If you don't like it, you can probably return it or all that stuff. So
yeah, because I did read about it, but I was also a little bit leery because I'm thinking here it's an analog system with the turntables, and we're introducing all this digital into the signal path. It seemed weird to me, but I'm happy to hear these endorsements.
Yeah. Cartridge definitely makes a difference, though. I mean, especially if yours is an old one. I'm assuming you're going to stick with the MM cartridge. So in that case, you might want to consider maybe, like Jeremy mentioned, another upgrade or at least replacing the stylus or something.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of going to a high output moving coil.
Then that might give you even better higher jump, I think.
If you're going to go that
more
route,
difficult to do.
Yeah, if you want to do that, I would definitely recommend looking into HANA. Their SL is a fabulous cartridge for the money. It's a low output. They basically have the S, H, and the SL, and so the H is like the moving magnet, and then the L is the moving coil. So they're for bang for the buck. The thing was extremely well received when it came out just a couple of years ago, and it was kind of the belle of the ball at RMAF and other places. So highly recommended. I've got a friend actually who carries their stuff. If you want, I could give him his information. So he'd also be helpful to talk about your system and maybe run you through some advice there too. If you have a relationship with a local dealer, I mean, obviously go through them first, but.
So David, if you go down to, is it Audio Connection you're thinking about going down to, John?
Yeah.
He's kind of a tube guy too. So he's a pretty good source for tubes, and also there's a vintage tube supply, Andy Bowman out of Chicago, Illinois. I've dealt with him extensively over the years, and I trust him implicitly. And he's like a tube guru expert, and he keeps his prices, reasonable, quote unquote, compared to some other places. And you always know what you're getting. I mean, it's no BS stuff and no fakes and all that kind of stuff. So, but John's a good source too for tube stuff. So.
Yeah, I bought my very first system from John in 1982 when I was an undergrad, and then I moved away from Seattle for better part of 30 years, and I was just delighted to find out that he was still in business. And I work down in the U District now, so he's just a few blocks from where I work, and so I'm stopping in there all the time. I bought a pair of Chapman T5 speakers from him in 1982 that I still have hooked up, although I got a used pair of Chapman T7s from a guy in Craigslist about a year ago, and I'm just loving those. So most of my stuff is used. That's how I keep it in a budget. And then I got a Jolita tube amp from John at the Audio Connection. It was a used one. It was a state sale or something that he was getting rid of. And
nice.
So, nice. So I upgraded to that within the last year.
Even used, that can feel like passing a kidney.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
thanks.
awesome.
That's helpful.
Nathan, we don't hear you. I think you're talking, but we don't hear you.
Oh yeah, John's a really good guy. He claims to be the best LP12 setup guy in town, and I have no reason to doubt him. I think he's really good. He's the guy I buy stuff from locally. So maybe getting your new cartridge aligned there, regardless where you buy your cartridge from,
Yeah.
is a good idea. So
I'll probably buy it from him. He's been recommending the Ortofon MC3 Turbo, a high output moving coil. And so I'm probably going to get one from him after Father's Day. I've told all my kids I want nothing but money. I need to replace my cartridge. So after Father's Day, I think I'm going to be going down this. I'm actually going to take my current one to him this next week to have him take a look at it under the microscope. I tried doing that myself yesterday. I pulled it off, and we've got a decent, like high school biology grade microscope upstairs. I probably spent an hour. I don't know if I ever got a good view, and I kind of knew what to look for, but so it'll be interesting to see what he says after he looks at it, because I didn't feel like I really got a good view of what was going on in the stylus. I was kind of looking for shiny or worn spots on the sides, but maybe it's still fine. That's why I couldn't find anything. I don't know.
Yeah. One thing that is nice about the Ortofon system that you have is like you can actually just replace kind of the stylus and the moving assembly, because it pops apart, right?
Yeah, it just pops right out. So like for $200, I could upgrade to the blue.
Right.
But John's opinion is really, if I'm looking for an upgrade, I really ought to go to the MC3 Turbo. He just sings that cartridge's praises. He loves it as sort of a mid-range. It's about $450, I think.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's a very solid cart. If you want to stay in the Ortofon family, it's a great one to go to.
Here's an idea too. Since you said you bought Chapman speakers.
Yeah.
Because he sells Chapman speakers. You could take your turntable, your preamp, and you could hook it up to. He's got Chapman speakers in house. You could practically hear your system.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Actually, you know what's funny? When I was considering buying this amp, I had just bought the Chapman T7s, a couple weeks earlier or so, or a month or two. I actually hauled them, they're heavy suckers, but I hauled them down to his shop and set them up in there because I wanted to hear this amp through my speakers. And so I actually spent about, 20 minutes or so listening to the T7s, the new ones that he had, with all the latest upgrades that Stewart's put into them. And listen to those for a while. And then I plugged in the ones that I had just bought. And now this might just be my bias because I've been living with them for a month or two, but I think my 20-year-old ones had a slight edge. I actually liked my own that I bought for like $800 better than the $10,000 ones that were sitting in the shop.
Wow. That's great.
But I'm freely willing to admit that maybe I was biased to want to like them more, but they sounded fantastic.
Well, it boils down to what sounds the best to you, because so.
Yeah. And of course I didn't want to get rid of the T5s because I've loved those speakers since 1982. So I actually now have two discrete systems in my room. I've got a home theater system with the Chapman T5s plugged into an NAD, surround sound receiver, and then I've got the T7s hooked into my Jolita tube amp and the turntable, and I actually bought Dick Mueller's Theta Digital universal player, and that's plugged into the Jolita as well.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
It's fun getting back into it, huh?
Yeah.
It is. I've been listening to. I'm a musician. I mean, I have a doctorate in music, and so I listen to real stuff all the time. But it's been really, really fun to be getting more serious into the actual audio sound.
The slippery slope. Be careful.
Yeah, I know.
If you do get into the DIY side of things, there is a DIY extension to the club as well, and yeah. So I think actually the most recent DIY meeting is on YouTube. I'm not sure. Dana is the one who recorded that and posted it. He could probably send you details.
Yeah.
But you could look at that as do I really want to hang out with these kooky people?
Yeah.
Kind of often, right?
Well, about the only DIY I've done is, when I, with my old T5s, I moved to Arizona and I had to put them in storage for a year.
Mhm.
And it was unair conditioned storage. I was just stupid. And when I got out, the mid ranges were pretty fried. So I called up Stuart and bought some new ones. He sent them to me. And then with a friend of mine that did know what he was doing, we soldered the new mid ranges in.
Nice.
Mm.
Speakers are a great way to start. I destroyed some of my dad's speakers when I was a kid. Poked all the dust covers off the voice coil. It poked them all in, and he'd pop them out, poke them in, pop them out. He'd poke a needle in there and pop them back out again. And so as a fine form of revenge, when I got into my teenage years and got into music and stereos, he gifted me his old Cerwin-Vega speakers. And he had these bookshelves and then these big 12-inch bass speakers with horn tweeters and stuff in them. And he gifted me these things, and it was awesome, except I started playing them. I turned it up just a little bit, and I'm like, Dad, I remember these sounded so great when I was a kid, but now every time I turn it up past a certain point, I just get this what is that sound? And he goes, that is the sound of a father's revenge. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he told me the story of how I used to poke them in when I was a rugrat. And, he had upgraded the whole house to a different audio system. And these things were just sort of sitting in the closet waiting for me to be old enough to use them. And then, so he kind of let me languish in the whole thing of how am I going to fix this? I mean, I got a stereo, but I can't listen to it. And what am I going to do? And I'm a teenager and I don't have much money. And how is this going to work? He let me sweat on it for a few days. And then in delightful, generous father fashion, he said, let's go on a field trip. And we went out to Radio Shack and we bought drivers, that basically for the mid ranges and stuff, and did the same thing you did, David. We basically spent the afternoon disassembling the speakers, installing the new drivers. And then all of a sudden I had great sound again. It wasn't the original sound. It was realistic, Radio Shack drivers, but sounded way better than, And then I did some trades in high school to replace the woofers because we weren't going to buy 12-inch woofers. He's like, if you want bass, you can replace those on your own time. And so I found a guy at my high school who was into car stereos. And, talk about ridiculous. This guy had taken these nice, cloth driver, dome, 12-inch woofers out of some subwoofer project. And he wanted something that hit really hard. He just wanted to just shake you when it went off in the car, right? And he had these 212s. And he was getting rid of them because he had moved on to another project that was based on 15s or something. And so he was selling them for like $50, these two 12-inch drivers. But what he'd done is to try and make them slam, he'd actually coated the cones and the dust covers with fiberglass resin and let it harden up so they were ultra stiff. And strangely enough, they sounded, insanely microphonic. You tap that thing and it's just but they sounded really good for better than the flubby didn't work bass. It lacked what it lacked in agility. It made up for in impact. I'll just put it that way. So, and to a high school student, it was fine. So fun times.
Hey, can I ask a question of John? I'm just wondering. Hey, John, where are you? This is way off topic.
In my bedroom.
Pardon me?
In my bedroom.
Oh, you look like you're out in
No,
second growth forest or something. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Background.
Oh, okay. It's a background. Never mind.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I took that That's Lake 22.
Oh, Jeremy, you're hosting what, America's Got Talent now? Is that the deal?
Wow.
I'm trapped in the Matrix, Tim.
Oh, the Matrix, right?
The Matrix
okay.
has me.
I see it. I see it now. Yeah.
Here's my other hobby.
Oh wow.
Whoa.
Nice.
Ooh, nice, David. I like Dana's. He's on the beach.
Yeah.
I want to join Dana.
Yeah.
Send me your background.
Hey, I did a little experimentation. As long as we're just talking, I was reading some of Siegfried Linkwitz's old musings. He's got a website, and he was talking about how for large orchestras, if your speakers are flat, the ear responds unnaturally to sound at about 3,000 hertz. So he advocated a 4 dB dip around 3,000 hertz. So I've been digitizing a lot of vinyl. I have a turntable and I have a Tascam DA3000, and I'll digitize some vinyl, and I implemented this 4 dB dip at 3,000, and it really does kind of make things sound a lot smoother without ruining any of the three-dimensionality that's inherent to vinyl. Just for what it's worth. Just so if you guys do any digital signal processing, either in real time or as a record function, Linkwitz's research is kind of interesting, and it seems to work. And that's it.
Rory, what's the deal with the 3,000 specifically?
Well, I guess he's studied a lot about hearing, human hearing, and I guess this stemmed from being in concert halls and stuff like that. So he just figured out that a 4 dB dip at around 3,000 hertz made things sound right. And it's because you're compensating for what the human ear does. I actually have I could send somebody a link to a web page that has a little graph of what he was doing if you're interested. But
it's
fascinating
because I think the range of human voice goes from about 80 hertz to 3K, and then it precipitously falls off after that. So it's interesting that our hearing would also, attune up to that point, and then but it's fascinating that it would want to drop right after that. I wonder why that is.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
I placed a link to the Linkwitz site on the group chat just now. But yeah, fortunately, it's still up. We lost Linkwitz, I don't know how many months ago, but fortunately, they're keeping his site up, and it's really worth spending some time to go and read all of his material there. It's amazing.
Oh wow! Okay,
yeah, there's
so it looks
definitely
like
some human evolution. Yeah, I was going to say there's some definite human evolution things related to those frequency ranges, say between 1 and 4K, about why we're sensitive and why we hear things and perceive things the way we do. I mean, you have to kind of separate yourself from being human in the 21st century here to being an evolving animal on planet Earth a little bit. Sorry to sound kind of far out there, but mosquitoes buzz in that range, and
oh, I hear them.
We may be sensitive in that range for protection.
Yeah. I on my iPad, I don't have the wherewithal to post the URL at this point, but if you go to the Linkwitz Labs site, It's under, what I'm talking about is under letter H. It's called 3 kilohertz psychoacoustic dip, but it's a letter H. So if you want to look that up, there are a couple links there that'll show you a graph of what he and some verbiage about what he's talking about. So
You know what else buzzes in that range, Jeff? Women.
What's that? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say something
Women.
quasi inappropriate, like you would think that.
Oh.
Yeah, you would.
So if you're trying to find a mate or hear the complaint of your mate, it's important to hear in that range quite well. But then again, there's that great audiophile joke. What is it? The one where Dana's got a book for us.
Uh-oh.
The Sound Reproduction by Floyd Toole. Yep.
Yeah.
Speakers in Rooms. That's a classic.
Yeah.
I've not read it, but I've seen it and desired it many times in my own adventures. I think I'll just borrow Dana's. Hey, Dana, can I borrow your book?
Yeah, there you go.
Dana's lending library.
Yeah, you can see I've got little slips of paper in here on the interesting places. It's
Yep. I like that cartoon that talks about the audiophile where the woman is basically complaining to the man who's kind of sitting on his couch in between his speakers, and she's like, how is it that you can hear a difference in your $3,000 audio cables, but you can't hear me calling you from the kitchen?
Slap, slap, slap.
Right.
Yeah. By the way,
I think we have about 5 minutes left, so I didn't renew another meeting. So I think at the end of it, we might abruptly cut off. So it was nice meeting you all. Let's continue doing this again, but yeah, let's keep on going, and then we cut off. That's it. So
one last thing. I don't know if anybody has this guy, but
what's that?
This is a little closer. I'm trying to turn my background off here. Hold on, so it won't. There we go. So this is the new release from Mobile Fidelity. You guys recognize that album? It's the Charles Mingus.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they just came out with this. This is their Ultra Disc one-step process that, basically ridiculously well-produced vinyl. It's about $125 retail. The first batch of them that they had on MoFi's website sold out, but some other places like Elusive Discs still have copies of it available. I'll put a link in the chat for anybody who wants it. I don't think we get to keep chat afterwards. So if you want that, you have to copy it off. I'll also send it an email, but just wanted to say it as a heads up. I thought it was sold out everywhere. And then I was looking on Elusive Disc, and it turns out that the way they buy these things, they do pre-order batches and whatnot. And so they still seem to have some pre-orders available, and they're still waiting to get their shipment from MoFi. MoFi tends to sell directly to their customers and then through Music Direct first. Both of those outlets sold out of it. But Elusive is kind of further down the line. And so their batch of however many, are coming. But this is 2,889 out of 6,000. So, but yeah, this is pretty cool. You should look into the if you're interested in vinyl, look into the Ultra Disc one-step process they use. It's pretty cool. It's kind of almost like a direct metal pressing. They eliminate quite a number of the stampers and stuff so that you don't have generations removed between you and the master. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, I'm gonna sign off now, Max.
sorry again. Thanks again, everybody.
Take care.
Yeah, take care. Yep. Take care.
Yeah. I only mention it because if you want something like that, getting it new is way cheaper than buying it used, because if you get it second, like 3 months from now, they'll be like $500 on eBay. And then most people will just be like, I'm not buying that. That's ridiculous. I mean, at $125 a disc, most people are going to be like, I'm not buying that. But it gets way worse if you wait. So anyway, this was fun. Thank you guys. This is great.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Dana, you have something over there?
You're muted, Dana.
See if I can get it in here quickly. So this is a Raspberry Pi.
Oh, cool.
Which lets you, I've got a Volumio running on this, which lets it show up on the network.
Nice.
as a device that JRiver can stream to. And then I have a digital out card so that it can out to an external DAC. So with this, you could make any DAC you have that has a SPDIF or TOSLink or whatever input,
Right.
put it on your network, and so then
Sweet.
you could do a hardwired input, or this has a Wi-Fi dongle on it, and so then I can just upgrade any old DAC and chuck it on the network and send music to it from JRiver. So that's kind of a fun thing.
Sweet.
Cool.
And if you put a nice battery behind it, then you'll have a nice clean power source.
Oh yeah, totally. But but yeah.
Thanks, Dana. That's sweet.
Hey, say, I had a quick question before we drop off here. Does anybody remember a meeting from, this could be up to 2 years ago? It was like a little amp shootout with either the ICE modules and something else. I don't know if it was the shit audio or it was another like semi DIY amp package. Does anyone remember?
Yeah, we did that ICE modules, and then there was some other old Class D, I think, and then we compared to the Class A of the club at the time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you like to hear more about it, or any question about that, or?
I just can't remember. I remember there being an amp shootout with small Class Ds.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. One was ICE, and I can't remember the other one.
Let me dig it out. I think it's in our meeting pages, past meeting pages somewhere. If you look for the amp shootout, it might show up there.
Okay.
Just take on the website. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't browsed completely on the new site, but nice work on the new site, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. So it needs some more cleanup, the past meetings, but you can at least text-wise, you can search through it and then find out what it is. So yeah, if there is there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Take
think
care.
we're probably
Cool.
going to end any
See
second.
you all.
All right. See you.
Have a nice weekend. So take care,
Peace, guys.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.